Hello and welcome to the Money Marketing Podcast. I'm Kimberly Dondo, Digital Content Manager. And in this week's Weekend Essay Podcast, news editor Michael Klimes tells us why we need more people like Labour MP Frank Field. Take it away, Michael.
Weekend Essay. Why we need more Frank Fields. A time comes in a journalist's life when they must choose. Do they want to remain a reporter or occupy the editorial chair? I avoided this chair for years, partially because I love writing and also due to the sound advice of my old boss, Helen Morrissey. If there is any advice I would give young journalists, don't become editor too soon, she said. Helen was in those days editor of Professional Pensions and gave me my first real job in journalism. She and Jonathan Stapleton, who remains editor-in-chief at the publication, are two people I will forever be grateful to, as they taught me the craft of journalism. There is a difference between having a job and really understanding what that job entails. To do the latter, you need people who mentor your development, and that requires considerable patience and time. The hope is you eventually become competent in all areas and generate some memorable experiences on the way. My 3.5 years at Professional Pensions certainly gave me some memories, none more powerful than the collapse of department store BHS. This was a story that, through no intention on my part, became my own, so to speak. It had everything a young reporter could want: a treasure trove of documents, released at regular intervals, a stellar lineup of witnesses from diverse backgrounds, and conflicting accounts of what led to the demise of BHS. The two cherries on the cake were British retail tycoon Philip Green and his aspiring nemesis, Labour MP Frank Field. Both would eventually meet in an eagerly anticipated Select Committee hearing. Their verbal sparring on the day, and other bon mots delivered in the press over months, made national headlines. This remains the only story I have covered that was a genuine national event and resonated with the average punter. The vast majority of stories journalists cover die long before they hit the general public's awareness. And the person who really drove the considerable public interest in BHS was Field, in his role as chairman of the Work and Pensions Select Committee. His style rubbed some the wrong way, and he was seen in some quarters as being too rough on the people he interrogated. I remember the ex-head of the pensions regulator, Leslie Titcombe, being on the end of a particularly bruising session. She did not return my smile as she left the committee room, which was a useful indicator of how she felt at the time. I, for one, would not want to be at the end of Field's tough questioning, as he was not one to go easy on people he felt deserved it. It was also clear he did not suffer fools or those he perceived as fools gladly. As a spectator, I could not help but be impressed for several reasons. He was in his 70s as the BHS debacle unfolded, yet had a vigour that belied his age. Field also seemed to grasp all details, minor or major, in every proceeding I attended. That was astounding, given the sheer number of witnesses there were and evidence submitted. Another important feature of his chairmanship was the collaborative spirit in which he led fellow committee members. Field is known for speaking his mind on sensitive issues in a forthright manner that can rankle. Yet none of that was apparent in his chairmanship, where he gave fellow MPs ample time to pursue whatever line of questioning they wanted. It was fascinating to watch these two sides of Field on show at the same time. the robust questioner on the one hand, and the collegiate chairman on the other. Maybe you need both styles to be a formidable and effective committee chair, which he certainly was. He was also a force to be reckoned with, because there was substance behind the style. In other words, he knew the policy area back to front and had done his homework. On both of these points, being excessively candid and deeply aware of the subject makes me think Field resembles Margaret Thatcher somewhat. They are figures who command a degree of respect and even fear. I have thought for a long time now that it is important to measure a person's life and career from the beginning to the end. It is far too easy and so lazy to take an off-colour remark someone has made and then pretend that is all there was to the person. This seems to be done very often these days, and I find it risible. My political sympathies are against the awarding of titles and peerages, given the risk of nepotism. Yet this New Year's honours list bared Field's name, and I was delighted to see him there. His life and career are larger than BHS, and I only know him from my encounter with him there. And his political positions contrast with mine, mainly on the subject of Brexit, where he voted leave and I remain. Nonetheless, a difference of opinion, and even principle, does not mean I lose respect for a person over that fact. Make no mistake, Field was an inspiring and important chair of a select committee that made the weather on an important national story. Politics would be in a better place if there were more people like Field in it, informed, independent-minded, and willing to express themselves with conviction.
Thank you, Michael, for another illuminating podcast. We hope that you did enjoy it. Please do keep up to date with all our new releases via Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere else that you get your podcasts from. You can also keep up to date with all our new content published on the Money Marketing website, as well as our Twitter and LinkedIn. See you next time.